couple of months. Is this a breakout or is this a fake out? Please tell us.
Well, it's always fun to make bold predictions, but I like to say I deal in probabilities, not predictions. And if you look at the weight of evidence and you look at all the factors, everything is suggesting that we've seen a major reversal here in silver and gold. We've had a really nice rally in silver, especially from the lows off of 1740 was the low up to almost $25. It's almost about a 40% move. So we've seen higher highs, higher lows. We've seen a technical breakout. We're above the key moving averages. Everything is in place for for a trend reversal. But that said, this is right here, right now is the point where everyone gets like max bullishness and euphoric kind of. Nothing goes straight up. So, if you're someone who's looking to, accumulate or trade or whatever the case may be, realize, use volatility to your advantage. It's not going to go straight up from here. I'm looking for, there could be a pullback here in the short term. But I think we're going to see higher highs and higher lows into, 2023. And I think 2023 is going to be a really nice year for us long-suffering silver affiliates.
Mm-hmm. Now let's start talking about the Fed. Last year, Steve, everyone was saying that the Fed will, they put themselves in a corner. Are they at the exact same point for 2023? What's your outlook?
I think there's a lot of debate about this, but really I think a lot of us who maybe seemingly disagree are kind of saying the same thing. Almost everyone sees like a slowing of interest rate hikes, which we've seen. They went from 75 to 50, then an eventual pause at this terminal rate, probably around 5.25, and then a 180. But some people call that slow pause pivot, and the disagreement comes around this definition of the term pivot. So I'll just use my definition. To me, the definition of a pivot is like a slight pivot. You start to change direction. You start to turn the boat around. So I think we've seen the pivot, but the 180 comes, when something breaks, in my opinion. And by 180, I mean, a return to full-on debt monetization, quantitative easing, turning on the monetary spigots. And that's what's really going to send these monetary metals, silver, gold, and all commodities really up to really, to new all-time highs. And I'm looking for, when that happens, silver to have its run towards 50. And I think that probably comes in 2023 when they do the full 180 and go back to, money printing on steroids.
Now, banks it just came out that they're buying more gold than they have in the past 55 years. In your eyes, are they preparing for something big?
Yeah, and this is just a trend that's been in place for, I think they call it like Brown's bottom. Was it 2000 or 1999 when England, Bank of England sold all its gold at like the worst possible time, and that marked the low for this kind of secular bull market. Gold bottomed back then around 200 and something an ounce. And look where we are now. I mean, it may not feel like it, but we've been grinding steadily higher. And ever since then, banks have been accumulating hand over fist. And so have central banks. That's what I meant to say, and governments. So they're the smart money. They know things before you and I do, like it or not.
Absolutely.
And, so they've been doing this for a while, but it is noteworthy that this trend is accelerating. They're buying hand over fist. And, for the people who say, oh, gold's a barbarous relic. Well, tell that to the central bankers. Tell that to JP Morgan, whose vaults of physical silver are just going up at a 45-degree angle. The smart money knows what's coming. And, this is just one more piece of evidence that suggests it's probably coming sooner than later.
And now, you are the silver chartist. Please show us some beautiful silver and gold charts, either short-term or long-term or whatever you have. Just make it seem good for us.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't have to, because the charts actually do look very compelling here. I like to go big to small,
right?
Because people make predictions, and you got to always assess what time frame people are talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and this is a super long-term chart of silver. And I know you've had guests talking about this. This is a major cup and handle pattern in silver that goes back to like 1980. And when we break above this 49.82 level, I mean, that's going to be the breakout of all breakouts, the mother of all breakouts. Now, granted, we're still down in the 20s, so we got some ways to go. But, in the years ahead, maybe sooner than that, we're going to eventually break out and make new all-time highs. And I don't think that'll be some kind of blow off top. I think that'll be the new base, that kind of propels the price higher, towards the later part of this decade. So that's super big picture. But let's zero in kind of, on a more short-term focus for people who are maybe, wondering what's going to happen next year.
Right.
So this chart goes back to 2019. These are weekly candlesticks, by the way. And we broke above this 2022 downtrend line. We broke out in November of 2022. You can see silver was up about 9% that month. and we've continued to rally up towards the $25 level. You can make a case that this is a bearish rising wedge. We poked below that yesterday, but today's Friday. We closed back above that line. So if that were to fail, this little support here, I would look for a pullback on the daily chart towards the 200-day moving average. In fact, I would welcome that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but a pullback towards this support down in the $21, $22 area.
So you think that's possible? It could go back down to $21.50.
Yeah, and as someone, I like to also say strategy is also more important than predicting exactly what's going to happen next.
Right.
So have a strategy in place that you can handle a variety of different short-term outcomes. So for me, and I suspect most of your listeners have a healthy allocation already. So if that's the case, you can afford to be more patient. Or if you're someone who has no exposure to the sector, I'm not telling you to wait for a pullback. If I had zero exposure right now, I would right now.
Right now. So Steve, Russia now, even the news came out in the past week or so, they increased their gold and yuan holding this week, and that's been huge news. Is the West moving way too slow by not increasing their gold holdings, and have we pushed Russia right into China's hand? What's your thinking there?
Yeah, I think so. It goes along with this trend, again, that we've seen for the last decade plus of de-dollarization. I mean, the dollar is the world's largest settlement currency. And I'm not sure I see that changing anytime soon, but the trend is in place where, the dollar is becoming increasingly less used as a reserve currency and a settlement currency. And what we see happening right now with Russia, China, and I'll add Saudi Arabia to the mix, is monumental. I think decades from now, we'll look back at this period right here, right now, and say this is where the pendulum began to really shift of power from the west towards the east. That as unfortunate as that may be, that's what's actually happening. That's reality, and that ties into even the petrodollar system. What gives the U.S. its world reserve currency status and is that oil is priced in dollars because of the petrodollar system. OPEC sells its oil in dollars. Well, we see Saudi Arabia cozying up to Russia and China. If you see Saudi Arabia and OPEC start to sell their oil in something other than U.S. dollars, that's going to really accelerate the downtrend in the U.S. dollar. And unfortunately, it looks all but inevitable in the years ahead. That's not necessarily a short-term prediction, but I think the trend is certainly